back in the studio. Blake, I'm digging the hat, man.
It's Masters Week. Yeah, we got
the green memo.
Yeah, yeah.
Are you play a lot of golf?
I do play a lot. I haven't improved in the past 2 years while I've been playing, but I still like it. Just get a pretty day and go out there. And, our business and family make it where nights and weekends are tough to get out and actually play. And so my playing schedule usually is like a random Tuesday morning. I'll go walk 9 holes and then get to the office by 9 a.m.
Okay. I saw a funny, it was a TikTok or Instagram reel or something. It was a guy who got invited to go, little skit they were doing, a guy got invited to go play golf, and he's like, yeah, I don't know if I'm really into this. He walks up, chips the ball, and it like lands close to the hole, and he turns to his friends, and he's like, I'm going to dedicate my entire life to this. And they're like,
all my
just
money.
nodding. Yeah.
I've seen that. So, it's hilarious. Dude, it is. It's like, it's such a love-hate. I played last week, and for like the first 2 holes, I was like, you would have thought like it was my 2-year-old playing. Like, what is going on? And then I would just hit one ball as a 5-iron of all things out of a bunker, like out of the sand, which is like, I mean, my mindset was like, well, maybe I'll get out.
Yeah.
Ended up hitting like 200 yards, 10 foot from the hole on the green. I'm like,
wow.
I love this game.
That's awesome.
It's just, which again, like that is such an anomaly. I've never hit a shot like that before in my life.
I know a lot of people take golf pretty seriously. We went on a camping trip with some friends of ours, and they had mentioned a new boyfriend of one of the friends of the wife, and the husband was trying to kind of get to know him a little bit. And it's like, oh, you play golf? Hey, cool. He's a pretty open-minded guy. He's like, I've never played, but if you ever want to, need a person to go with you. And the guy basically was pretty bluntly like, no. He's like, I take it pretty seriously. I'm not taking some noob with me to the golf course. And he was like, dude, he was just like it wasn't even entertaining the idea
my gosh, that's hilarious.
of taking me. And he's
well,
okay, all right,
we're not friends.
I'm not going to learn to play golf with this guy. I guess we're not friends.
Yeah, it's funny. It's obviously a frustrating game because there's no such thing as perfect in it. And it's a lot of like mental exercise, I guess, while you're out there. But you'll see people that just blow up, throw clubs, just crazy. So I'm like, are you even having fun? Like, why are we here? But also, I think there's the other side of that is like the mindset of that I try to approach is like, I'm not great. I'm out here to enjoy the beautiful weather, get some exercise because we walk and whatever.
Perfectly manicured ground.
Yeah, it's just pretty. It's fun awesome to do. But I think there's an appropriate level of frustration relative to your skill level. And a lot of people have that frustration level is way too high for where it should be based off their skill level.
Based off their skill level.
Yeah. It's I got a couple buddies and we kind of joke about that when we see people or play with someone new who is out of proportion like that. Mm-hmm. It's like, bro, you're way too hard for how not good you are.
Anyways, yeah, Masters going on. Just watch the professionals, but it's good to catch up, kind of hear what's going on in your personal life.
Dude, so real quick Masters story. I know we're talking about golf a lot here, but
it's a new golf podcast.
Yeah, new golf. Yeah. All the advice you want from us on golf. Yeah. So my mom's parents, my granddad was a Methodist preacher for 50 years, and he took care of this couple that was even older than them until they ended up passing away. That this couple had Masters tickets. They had 2 of them every year. They had badges. And they, the last 10 years of their life, that couple didn't go because they were, health reasons and stuff. And so this is when I was little. So my parents went a couple years and my grandparents went. And the one rule was you can't sell them. And that's like a Masters rule, but also like their internal rule because you could still like sell them. And this was...
Are these tickets like lifelong
Yes.
passes?
Yeah. They had full weekend... full weekend badges, like lifetime.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just crazy. And my parents said, and this was 20 years ago, they got offered $5,000 a piece for the tickets 20 years ago. Like, it's just like that crazy.
So tell them what they're worth now.
Yeah. And so that couple passed away, and they didn't have any family, and so they willed everything to my grandparents, including those Masters tickets.
Oh, cool.
My granddad, and I've later, so my granddad reached out to him, to the Masters, like, hey, just wanted to let you know this. We'll just put them in our name, whatever, and we'll roll forward. Doesn't happen. If the person dies, they go back to the Masters and reallocate it.
Oh, wow.
And so I always wondered, like, if he had not reached out to him, would we have 2 Masters tickets for the full weekend in my family?
Oh, man, bummer.
But someone told me this year who grew up in Augusta, who used to work it as a high schooler. He was like one of the kids running up there.
They check IDs or something when you get
They check obituaries.
Oh, wow.
How wild is that?
But how often? You may have gotten a couple of
know.
masters in before they're like, oh, yeah, this couple's not with
but
us
I was,
anymore.
not until because I didn't start golfing until like a couple years ago, so I couldn't tell you a single, Tiger Woods and growing up. But outside of that, so the draw to go just hasn't really been there until like the past couple of years. So they probably would have found them. Yeah, but in finding, but it's cool because my mom has framed in her house badges every single year since the 40s from the Masters.
Wow.
Like that's how long they had them. And so you've got a ticket, this big picture of tickets from almost every year. So anyways, that's where this hat came from. So I've not been. I know some people get mad when you wear Masters gear and you haven't been, whatever. But
I'm mad.
Yeah. But my parents bought this when they went.
Well, cool, man. I know a few episodes back we talked about you were in Chicago and doing the coaching thing. I know you only meet like once a quarter, but they do give you homework.
Yeah.
Anything new or relevant with that?
You guys been doing? Yeah, so going through that homework, one of the big things that we may have talked about on this podcast already was discovering and honing in on one's unique ability. So we went through an exercise of writing down all the business activities that we do in a week or in a month or ever, and then categorizing them into different things of you're not good at, you shouldn't be doing, all the way up to there's 4 quadrants, but the number 1 quadrant was unique ability. So categorizing all the things inside the list of stuff that you do that you're great at, that you should be doing, that gives you energy, that just fires you up, that
I remember touching on that.
Your unique ability.
Yeah.
And so, and it was interesting, we categorized like how much time we spend in each quadrant, and it's only like 15% that I was spending in that unique ability zone. And so it's got my mind thinking and trying to be intentional with scheduling out my week to make sure it revolves around those unique abilities.
I imagine your schedule is probably the most streamlined of any person I am currently associated with in any degree. Just a personal tidbit. Like, if I just got a play-by-play, is your wife disorganized, or is she on board, or does she get like, can we just have like a moment where we're not planning out the next 20 minutes of our lives?
Man, it's crazy because I'm not. It's funny you say that because I'm not organized. Like all this is not natural behavior for me.
Sure, it's not. I totally agree,
dude. It's ask anyone know me growing up or like listen to. Both my parents and Rachel's parents were in town and over for dinner, and they were our daughter Stella, who's now she's got a lot of words and has so much energy, and it's like a top that's spinning that you like set it down, it's just boom, like gone, like that's just how she
just chasing after you.
And Rachel's mom looked at my parents and was like, "Was Blake like that?" Because Rachel's like an angel. She's like the easiest. They've said this, like the easiest child, like super easy. And they were like, "Oh, Blake was worse." So I just 90-0 all the time, unorganized, just scattered. So by no means am I close to like perfectly organized, but it's all forced, and that's why I have a coach. Like that's the whole reason for the coaching program is
why you have a coach
to put some structure around all of that activity and energy. Because if I didn't, I would probably end up spending all my time in that 4th quadrant, which is like the last place I should be.
So have you been applying this, and how has it been affecting since your last meeting?
Yeah, so it really is forced me to stay up more in the high level, in the sense of like team growth, investment growth, like where are we headed on the investment piece, and trying to like big picture scale. And so those activities look like, again, it's become a theme the past couple episodes, but building relationships with people who work in those spaces. So if we're going after 100+ unit multifamily deals, what brokers work in that space, what lenders work in that space, building relationships with them, what other investors work in that space who might be acquiring deals that they need a partner on, or dispositioning some deals that I could buy. And just putting myself in that world and surrounding myself with those people to where opportunities will come out of that. Where before I haven't, like if that is one of my goals. And so before I haven't been structured or consistent about chasing those things or doing those things. But I've been part of my 4th quadrant activities are like tenant management in our, low income property. And it's like, that is not the highest and best use of my time. I'm not good at it. I don't enjoy it. It's very outsourceable. And so, like, just getting structure around those things.
Stuff you may not even think about.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, okay, I could save myself an hour every week.
Yeah. Or some stuff like I shouldn't be doing, like like it adds no one should be doing it a part of my team or business because it doesn't add any value and it's just a waste of time and money. Like, and so getting some of those stuff off our plate, which, you know, when I'm unscheduled and unplanned throughout the week, it's like super easy to kind of fall towards those higher number blocks, and it's just like that's not the highest and best use of my time.
That's awesome. It's cool to hear about what could be if I were to structure my life a little bit better. I think I thrive for the chaos sometimes.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's, you know, let's touch on that a little bit because my success, how I view my own success, is so relative. My natural instinct is to measure my success against where I think it could be, which I think may be a pretty common thing, and that's what the coaching program kind of indicated, that a lot of people measure where you are to where you think you could be or should be, and a lot of times it's a negative view because you're like, I'm not there yet. I'm not there. And so they have something called the positive focus, which, and we've talked about, I've got the journal that I write down at the end of every single day, what were 3 big wins today and 3 big wins I want to have tomorrow. And so it's a lot about reviewing around what have we accomplished and measuring backwards and saying, you know, and not just living in the past, and, you know, we're always setting goals to move forward, but also what have we done and where have we been? Where was I 2 years ago based off where I'm at today?
An appreciation of where you're at.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. And so in doing that, it's really changed my mindset more on the positive side of things because it's...
You know, I was down in the dumps like, man, I'm just not getting it. I'm just not working hard enough.
Yeah, and I'm on social media, and this guy's got, you know, 1,000 units, and this guy's cash flowing $100,000 a month. And I'm like, dang it, why am I not there? This guy started 4 years ago. I've been doing this 10 years, and I'm not there yet. Like, it's super easy to get in that mindset of, like, you know, comparing where I could be, or if, even worst case, to somebody else, to where I'm at now. So if I look back and say, okay, this is where I've come from, and so it's interesting to hear people like, and that's the constant thing I've got to feed my own self and my own brain is like, okay, we've got to stay on the positive focus because people will come to me and be like, man, I love what you're doing. It's super cool. You've got all these units and you're doing these things and you flip this. Like, wow, like that is success. Like in their mindset. Like, and to me, I'm like, we're nowhere near
scratching the surface.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, to me, when I first met you, that was the impression that I had. I was like, wow, man, you're doing all these things. And I had no idea, you know, when I first met you in our first conversation, all the information that you would bring to the table. And I was like, dude, you're so successful, you know, and you're a young guy and you seem to have all your ducks in a row. And yes, so speaking from experience, you know, seeing that outsider view, I'm like, dude, why even keep going? Like you're done, you know what I mean? Like you've done it. You've reached the threshold.
Gosh, it's so relative. So it's my mind's probably when we met, my mindset was like probably close to like failure. Like I mean not fail because I think failure is like you're giving up, which like I'm nowhere near that, and I wasn't then. But it was not recognizing the success that I've had and appreciating it and thinking about it. But it's again just comparing what it could be and knowing that I'm not at my potential, which I think internally is like the biggest fear. This is about to get real deep, but my biggest fear is like getting to the end of my life and realizing that I was nowhere near the potential that I could have been.
Sure, yeah.
And that's not just for business,
that's
but
a
that's
reasonable
for
fear,
I mean, that's for being a dad, a husband, you know,
just all things.
Yeah,
like,
just
did I
things.
live my life the way it was intended to be lived?
Yeah.
And did I reach all the goals that, you know, I was hoping to reach or I should have reached? Yeah, because nobody wants to. It's almost like, you know, you don't want to have regret at the end of your life. You know what I mean?
Man, I heard I read this in a book, or I forget where I heard it, but it was what heaven and hell looks like, and getting to hell looks like you're meeting the person you could have been.
Ooh, yeah.
When you get to heaven, it's like looking in a mirror, or you're meeting yourself.
That's a pretty good analogy.
And man, that stuck with me. And that's just like
meeting the person you could have been. Well, in that vein, I think you are incredibly successful, and I know that you're gonna, you know, the sky's the limit for you. But if you could go back to the early days of Blake swinging the hammer, we've talked about that in full extent. So anybody listening, I would encourage you go back and listen to some of the early episodes about how you got started. Really, really cool. But if you could go back and meet that person when you first got started, before having any of the clients or the knowledge that you had, or maybe you have the knowledge, you could take that with you.
Yeah.
But you're starting over.
Okay.
What would you do differently? And let's say you have $10,000 in your pocket. What does that look like? And would you make what kind of changes, or if any, what would you do?
Oh my gosh.
Big question.
Yeah. So $10,000 to invest. and I've got the knowledge.
You've got the knowledge, but you're 10 years
Yeah.
in reverse.
I wouldn't swing hammers.
Okay.
I wouldn't do that, man. I would go bigger, faster, which is easy to say,
Sure.
hard to execute because it feels so risky, especially if you're starting from nothing. But I'd probably take that, and 10 grand's not going to really get you much of anything from an investment standpoint and property. I'd probably take that, even if I have the knowledge I have now, probably into education, like into a coaching program that's specific to, I would niche down and then find resources and surround myself in that world. So if I decided big multifamily is the way I'm going, and I'm starting today, I'm not going to flip a couple houses and do it myself and then buy a $30,000 rental and then flip a couple more. I'm not going to do that.
You would pick a lane.
I'd pick a lane and just be the expert. Man, I would do it. And let's pretend it's multifamily. Then I would find my target, 100 to 200 units in the Southeast, in Huntsville, Birmingham, Montgomery, and Atlanta, or North Atlanta. You know, pick some places. Know every single broker, underwrite. I would normally kind of rule of thumb is like if you underwrite 100 deals, you know what you're doing. I would go in, underwrite 100 deals. That's free to do, so that didn't cost me any money. Get in some kind of program that is teaching about buying big apartment complexes and just be the expert. And I would dive right in. And I would, I still to this day wouldn't have the funds to go buy a $15 million apartment complex. So it's no different then versus now on the finance side. I'm just raising money. Right, so I'm gaining the knowledge so I can speak confidently to investors to say, you need to trust me and what I'm building with your funds to partner with me to take down some apartment complexes, and let's go. And
do you think apartment complexes would be the direction you would go?
That's a good question. Probably because I was in the residential space.
Okay.
As a
maybe
realtor.
back off on the flips or any of the.
Well, if I'm brand new, I haven't done any of that. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. And I don't think there's a right answer. It's just where I find some enjoyment and passion. Mm-hmm. Because if I picked retail shopping centers, if I picked storage
retail
units,
space,
I pick, you can succeed in any one of those. And arguably no one is better than the other if you become the expert and do it well. But I think it's just what you're going to enjoy. Because if your passion is in self-storage, but you're over here in multifamily and you're just crushing it, that's great. You're making good money, but at the end of the day, it's not a unique ability. It's not giving you life, right? It's not giving you energy, and you're going to burn out. And so, I think just figuring out what that is, and so I would not rush into anything. To take some time to figure out what lane I want to go in through education and through talking with people in the industry, picking it and just diving deep into it, for sure.
Did you feel like? I mean, I guess we all, hindsight is 20/20. Looking back, did you feel like, other than swinging a hammer, you said you wouldn't do that anymore. Were there any other areas of focus that maybe weren't the best uses of your time, like in a big way, in a business sense, not just like on a day-to-day personal?
Oh yeah. How much time do you have?
Okay. Well, I don't know. I don't know if there was any one thing that stood out. You're like, man, I got into this home project in Irondale, and it was just a nightmare. And if I could go back, I would definitely never even touch that area of town again or something like that.
More so outsourcing. So okay. I was very much so, and I was.
Yeah, we talked about that.
I
want to be in control.
Yeah, I just want control. No one can do it better than me, and I've got to do every little piece of everything, which just stunted my growth for so long. And so now that I have that knowledge, if I went back early, man, I would get partners and people.
Kind of release the reins a little bit, maybe. Offers more opportunity than less.
Because I was managing. We've talked about I manage that one now, but I was hands on day to day, either swinging hammers or managing people on flips for 5 years, and man, I missed so many opportunities to grow because I was on site making sure that a door was set correctly. That is so outsourceable and so easy to replace me in such a low dollar producing activity that it just took me so long to recognize that. Yeah. So I think my growth could have been, again, this is, kind of measuring backwards, and I'm not discounting like what I've been able to do, and I recognize that, and I'm grateful. But also I recognize, wow, like if I can, that's one of the reasons for this podcast, if I can convey this message to someone wanting to get into real estate to, hey, I've done the mistakes and I've done it. And if you can take that knowledge and apply it and skip 10 years of my learning curves and mistakes, man, do it and run with it. because I've made almost all the mistakes there are.
But there's some merit to the mistakes that you make. I mean, like, it's one thing, at least for me personally, I could read 10 books. I could probably even sit down and have coffee with 10 experts. But until I actually do it myself, there's just a whole nother level of knowledge, at least in the way my brain works when I'm hands-on doing it. So I guess all that to say, I know you said you wouldn't swing hammers, but there's a lot of knowledge that I'm sure you gained through that process and being hands-on and being on the ground and fixing those doors. And I think we even had one of your early TikToks that took off is about talking about you were able to really speak the language with a contractor who otherwise maybe some of the other investors and stuff he deals with, he can just kind of talk his way out of it versus you're like, no, I know how this is done. I've done it, and ultimately you were able to get the problem resolved. I think a lot because you had the experience.
Yeah, that is true.
So maybe there's some give and take there.
I don't want to discount that, but that is, I mean, just pulling the trigger. Like there's never going to be no risk. There's no amount of knowledge from books and talking with people that you can gain that eliminates all risk.
There's going to be mistakes made.
100%, because every deal is a little different. No deal is exactly right. And so, there is going to be. But I think, like, I had a quote-unquote head of construction and a system of here's how you operate, call me when you're done kind of thing. I've got here's where the financing comes from, here's the deals we're looking for, and we've got if instead that first deal, instead of it being a $95,000 house in Irondale that takes me 11 months to flip myself, it was a 125 unit that could cash flow day one. Holy cow, like where would I be today?
Yeah.
If that's where I started.
Right.
And made some failures on that and some learning curves and did it. But if I invested that 10 grand in the knowledge on how to hedge the risk to make sure that it was a calculated risk and make sure that worst case I'm not, going bankrupt. At the time I had no money. I was living with my parents unmarried, but I making sure that worst case, like my investors don't lose their money. Then if I'm comfortable that I'm setting the deal up where worst case they're going to be made whole and the deal's, it's not the end of the world, then it's worth that risk.
Yeah.
So, I would go bigger, faster.
Bigger, faster.
Bigger, faster.
Pick a lane.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm sure there's somebody out there that needs to hear that, maybe kind of dabbling in things that aren't the best. Kind of the theme of this episode, I guess, is managing your time and trying to be efficient. Maybe efficient's not even the correct word, but just like being strategic and how you're allocating your time, what you're doing. Is it really maximizing my goals or the potential to reach my goals versus things that aren't really doing much of anything? I feel like I'm in control, but really it's just a waste of time.
Yeah.
So.
Well, let's bring this full circle. And if I go to the driving range 2 hours a day and only hit driver over and over and over and over, but only hit driver, 8 times in a 18-hole course, but I chip 57 times, but I'm not working on chipping at all, is that the highest and best use of my time? Is that being strategic on my practicing, right?
So you got to spend a whole day just on the driving range, a whole day in the sandbox, a whole day.
Yeah. I mean, diversify on your skill set and figure out where you need to spend your time, what's the highest and best use, and what's your unique ability, right? And just hone in and just focus on it and go. And that's why I'm so pumped about this year is like that program is already, we're 6 months in out of a 3-year program. I've shifted my focus and my mindset on how I approach those things.
So you're seeing a good return on the investment of doing this
I think
coaching.
So, yeah. And it's a big investment, time and money, but I think it's going to come back tenfold just based off how it's transitioned my focus into that 4-quadrant activity into one.
Cool, man. It's always good to get an update from you, and obviously you're doing the coaching and stuff, and I'm sure that's being incredibly beneficial, hopefully, with all the time and energy and investment and being in Chicago. Yeah. So I'm sure we'll get more updates and stuff as you progress through that.
And anyone wanting to dive into that, multifamily space, I'm halfway through a book. I think it's David Lindahl. It's called The Multifamily Millionaire. And it's been super good to lay out like just very practical steps, like here's how to get into it. So shout out. That's
Multifamily Millionaire. Okay, so people specifically wanting to get into the multifamily.
Yeah, it's been a pretty good read so far.
Awesome. Well, I always like to kind of dive into the personal thing, and I know we spend a lot of time talking about golf and stuff, so it's not all business around here. It's good to kind of just hear about what you have going on in your personal life. And the past few podcasts, for anybody that's been following, you purchased a Land Cruiser, and you kind of told us the story about how you acquired that and the deal you were trying to work to make that happen, but ultimately got it. And you've been working on it with all this free time that you have. I don't know how you have time to work on a vehicle, But what's the latest with that, man? How's
Yeah,
that going?
man. So the big crescendo. How do you say that?
Well, you're the piano major.
Yeah,
so
I chose the wrong word. We got it running. That was the biggest. Like
Okay,
we've been
cool.
leading up to this for what 3 months now. Finally got it running.
Now I've been following on Instagram and TikTok.
Yeah.
And was it the fuel pump or the starter?
Yes.
Or what was the problem?
So I replaced the fuel pump because that seemed to be the issue, and it just still wasn't getting power. What's going on? Well, I wired it up backwards.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
Didn't fry
so-
it or anything? Or did you
No.
have to- okay.
No.
It still works. You
Still-
just have to wire it the correct way.
Literally, yeah. And it took a friend's brother coming over who is a mechanic, and two hours of troubleshooting everything. He was like, "Oh, well, these are just wired backwards."
always the
You talk about
simplest
like
thing,
feeling dumb. I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Well, so we fixed that. And then it was like I knew once we get it started, we're gonna find other problems because we hadn't had the thing running yet. So the alternator's bad. So it's up on
Battery's
ramps.
just dying, yeah.
Yeah, up on ramps in my driveway now, and when I find time, I got to switch that out. So
Okay.
got one of
Switch
those.
out the alternator, and then hopefully.
There's while it sits there off. So we went to the beach last week. Brand new battery, hooked it up, put it in there, got back from the beach. It's 100% dead. And so something's pulling off the battery. I don't think. Again, I know nothing about cars. I'm learning
Well, I'm
so
not a
much.
mechanic, much of a mechanic myself.
But from my understanding, that's not going to be the alternator. So there's something else going
something
on.
draining the battery.
Yeah, so that's a problem for future Blake. We got to figure out the alternator first.
Well,
where
if
we're
you're
at.
not only into real estate, you want to hear about his journey into the world of Land Cruisers, which is a whole world in
That
and of
is,
itself.
yeah.
Follow Blake on TikTok, Instagram, all the other socials. It's been cool to hear about what all you have going on, man, and catch up and talk about golf. And
Try to
even
keep
though
it
I'm
interesting.
not a golfer myself, but it's always great chatting with you and hanging out. And until next time, man, take it easy.
Cool. See ya.